And we are live, or actually not live. This is our second live, Sunday live. We're supposed to be live, but we don't have enough internet connection, as you may have seen in the previous live that we actually did release, explaining that at our current campsite here in France, we're not able to get the Starlink in an optimum position related to the trees overhead that we desperately need and are using for shade to keep cooler, because it's very hot. But it can't get around those enough to get a good enough internet signal to consistently record a live without it freezing all the time. Mm-hmm. I think it froze even in the middle of us recording like 23 seconds worth of that. So here we are, just making a normal recording, and then we will quickly just upload this, and so you guys can watch it as quickly as possible. So, welcome.
Yes.
So today on this, we're making these live. Our goal is for these to be live Q&A, answering common questions we've received or new questions we're receiving during a live via the chat. That kind of format, answering questions or talking about a specific topic. Today we're answering the questions of vehicle choice, why we chose Caravan versus, so for anyone new here, we are a family of 5 traveling full-time, more or less full-time, nomadically traveling throughout Europe as a family of 5 in a travel a camper trailer, which is called a caravan here in Europe, and then we have a Sprinter van pulling that. That's how we're living. We're pretty much pitching up at campsites, occasionally at friends' places if they have a place where we can park and stay and hang out with them, fellowship with them, help them with projects or whatever. But mostly we're in campsites thus far. And if we get to it, or this might be a later question, just talking about how we find campsites, because that's a big deal. That'll probably be a separate video. But for now, talking about our vehicle choice pretty much. Yeah. Why caravan versus van versus motorhome versus a converted lorry, like a van box van, and then why we chose these specific vehicles, this specific model and make of caravan and van. So anyway, let's get into it. Sarah, when we were in Portugal, because we first moved in early 2024, March, we moved from Missouri in the U.S. to Portugal, and eventually came to the conclusion that we needed to buy a mobile house solution so that we could travel around the way God was telling us to travel around. We thought we were going to settle in Portugal, but that turned out not to be what we were to do.
And with visas.
Visas didn't work out for that long term, and we also realized we didn't want, like, Portugal is not the greatest choice for homesteading now currently. So that's another video too. But we realized that we needed a mobile home solution that we could bring with us and travel around with, so we could bring our home with us to different locations and to people's properties that we were helping with. And so we were faced with that decision. Do you want to talk about, like, how we arrived at Caravan?
Yeah.
Plus a separate van.
Yeah. So we were in Portugal trying to figure out what to do. And we had actually lived in a fifth wheel, if you look at the earlier videos.
Yeah.
When our youngest son was born.
Yeah. That was in Idaho.
That was in Idaho on raw land. And so we got a used fifth wheel, and it worked good for that year. It was really nice because it had a slide out. So instead of it being 8 feet, I don't know how many meters
wide,
8 feet wide, it almost doubled it. And so it was actually really comfy and cozy. Like, it was quite nice space-wise.
The living room area became pretty large.
Yep, and our bedroom. And so it worked out. True. So it worked out for us. It was tough, but it worked out. It worked out all right. Yeah. But it was nice to, within a year, there were issues though, because it started to mold. And the slide outs Tom really didn't like because of the rain being able to come in and that kind of a thing. And so actually didn't mold too much. It was just a little bit, barely.
Yeah, just started some.
And so
the slide outs are the main culprit. If you have slide outs on an RV, those are where it gets you. They fail often, and usually it's in the either motor function or the waterproofness of it.
So Tom did not want to get a fifth wheel, and we found out in Europe they're very difficult to find. And so we were looking at, motorhomes are very expensive, but they're also really impractical, especially for families, because we wanted to be able to park somewhere, but then we wanted to be able to drive to go get groceries, to go visit places, to go visit people. We really needed to have a vehicle that could fit all of us in that vehicle too, and not have to pack up a motorhome every single time we wanted to go somewhere. So we knew motorhomes were going to be out. So we knew fifth wheels then were also out. So we were looking at the Caravans, and I was looking all over, looking at different places and just researching like mad, trying to find a place. And so we actually found that the Hobby in Portugal still, we were looking. So I found a Hobby, is the brand name of, it's really well made, and they had the longest Caravan, I believe, in my research, it was the longest Caravan, a lot of people were saying that, in Europe. And it had a triple bunk at the back, and then it was a full bathroom. The toilet was in its own, but it felt like an actual nice proper toilet, not an RV one.
Three-piece bathroom.
Yeah, three-piece bathroom. And then there was a door, so the children's area, and there was like a little chair for the kids to be. There was a kids area. They had their own 2 cubby holes, not cubby holes,
like
but storage spaces
in each bed,
for them to do that. So it was great. And then you go through that door, then you have the adult bed, the queen size bed, or double, double bed.
A narrow double bed.
Okay, it was a double bed. And then it was a good, decent sized kitchen area with a oven, nice sized fridge, freezer, and then what we're sitting in now,
seating area.
The seating area. And so it was what we really were looking at and needing, because we knew that if we're gonna be living in this in any amount of time, we wanted to be able to do that. And it worked well. The kids were all excited. They had their own area. They had their own beds. It was fine.
Why did we want a bed for each person that was dedicated?
Because we didn't want to have to move it every day. Because that's ridiculous.
There's a lot of mobile or caravans, RVs. Some or all of the beds have to become your breakfast table in the morning.
Yes.
And when you're living in it full time, that stinks to have to tear it all apart, change it back and forth and back and forth. It's not fun.
And if people are sick, it doesn't work out. So we knew we didn't want that. So we got that, and it was good. Like, it was a double axle, but Tom's really good at driving all of them, and so it worked really well. Like, we actually backed it up into places. We ended up taking that because we had to head out
in Europe, but we were making it
work.
We
were able to make it work. We took it all the way down to Albania.
From Germany.
And into Montenegro, around Montenegro and Bosnia. And so it worked well. But at the end, if you get a caravan and you have 3 children, unless they're very little children, the triple bunks are a little bit small. And our kids actually started out being okay, but they're kids and they grow. And so they just had growth spurts. 2 of them especially had growth spurts during that time.
And they were 11, 9, and 7-ish during that time frame.
Yeah, 8,
a little
7,
less than that.
And so they were all just growing. And so it got to a point where it didn't work out. Also, we found out then that going into the UK, we actually had to leave our caravan behind in Germany when we went into the UK the first time, because it's too long to get into the UK, because it was 9 meters, around 9 meters.
Yeah, I think you can't have anything longer than a 7 or 7.5 meter long caravan if your towing vehicle has less than a 3.5 ton total gross vehicle rating. So the total of it and the trailer the van has to be capable legally of towing more than 3.5 tons total. And ours is 9 kilos short of that.
Just short. Just short.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't have that.
Yeah.
Um,
So we needed a single axle. Well, we needed a shorter Caravan. So the one we're in now is pretty much, that one was 9 meters long. This one is 7.
Yeah.
7.5-ish, including the tongue.
Yeah.
But it's right about 7.
Yeah.
And so it's legal. It's also a single axle, which we learned if you're going to be in the UK, particularly with a hobby brand Caravan, we'll talk about this more in a bit, but you don't want a twin axle trailer, tandem axle. You want a single axle trailer, because a lot of campgrounds will ask, are you a single axle or a twin axle? If you're a twin axle, they will not allow you onto the campground.
Yep.
We'll tell you why in just a few minutes, or in a while, but you want a single axle if you can swing it. So this one is like a heavy duty single axle. Yeah.
But try and think of how to like live any extended period of time, more than a couple days or a week, with a large family, was rough on that. And so when we were actually heading to the UK the first time, we ended up getting in an accident, and so we had to get a different Caravan. Yeah. And because of that, we were able to then get a shorter one, which meant that allowed us that we could spend 6 months in the UK with our friends there. So
with
it was
our Caravan.
Yeah, with the Caravan. So it worked out great. Ultimately, but it was hard.
Yeah.
Giving up all the space, and this one just like visually being inside just looks so much smaller than the other one.
Yeah.
But the good thing, like you said, besides us being able to get into the UK and the single axle, I didn't think that we were going to be able to find one. So when we went back to the place where we got it, the lady, the saleswoman who sold us this and talked with us, I explained what we needed, and I said, we need to have the 3 beds for the kids, and they can't be the triple bunk anymore. It's too small. I said, and we really, really need to have a bed for us that does not require us turning this area and doing that. So we were trying to figure out, and we get really creative. So we were thinking about trying to add like beds and all this stuff. Yeah. So she said, oh, I think I have a perfect one for you. And she looked up. I said, I've looked and looked and looked, and I can't find any. I don't know what you're talking about. And she said, it's a hobby. And I said, I've looked at all of them. Well, it was like a modification of one, and so I hadn't seen it. And it's still actually from the factory. From the factory. It's just a different model, but it's an extra. So this one actually, this stays like this all the time, and then the ceiling is actually where we sleep. So our like bed is up there, and it comes down
onto the ceiling like bats and hang down.
Yes, that's why. So this whole space here comes down, and this. Whoops, I don't know if you can see this. Here, this rests down here, and so the kids can actually be under here, or we could be under here.
Yeah, we can be under here like this, or our kids can sit up. Generally under here, we can on this end. I guess on this end we can sit down here, and it's like right here. This ceiling is down here. But the sides come all the way down here, so it's tight along these sides when it's in down mode. But anyway, that comes down. So we get double use out of this footprint of our seating area. Also doubles as a bed, but then the bed goes away during the daytime, and we can use it as a table without having to tear all the cushions apart, pull sheets off, and stuff them somewhere, and deal with pillows and all that.
This has a much smaller kitchen, which has been tricky. And how we countered that was in our van, we have kind of set up sort of a kitchen area.
Kitchen appliances, basically.
Yes, that wouldn't fit in here.
We'll show you, give you a tour of that stuff during the daytime. Sometime. It's night. It's dark right now.
Yeah, so that makes it kind of work out. It makes it work. We've been doing it. We've been doing it for 8 months now. Yeah. So it works.
It's working. Yeah. Ideally, we would also have an awning or a tent that attaches to the side of the Caravan. That way we could have kind of an overflow kitchen / living space out there. That would be way, way better. So we want to work up to that. But we don't have one yet. We kind of had one, but it was a kind of the lowest grade you could get of tent, and it was made short enough to attach to the end of the Caravan, the hind end of the Caravan. It was tall enough to do that, but for us to attach it to the long side of the Caravan, I had to like unstake the first hoop worth and kind of float that up in the air and then attach it to the trailer. And we had a really heavy windstorm over the winter in England. And it shredded that tent
completely
beyond repair.
Yeah.
And ripped off the little channel thing, or the attachment bead that attaches it to the Caravan, just totally ripped that off. So anyway,
yeah,
that was a bummer. So eventually, hopefully, we'll have another awning of some kind, be able to expand out that direction some.
So if you go to Germany, I was going to say,
so
if we go to Germany,
why Germany, you mean? Or,
oh yeah, we can talk about why. It was part of that.
Okay.
It was part of that. So.
Okay. So basically, that was why we went Caravan. So we could have a separate vehicle that we can then drive around with, and not have to unjack and unpack. Get into travel mode with everything we owned. We could also with that van, we can get into some little villages, because we'll talk about that specific choice of van. It is large, but it is just small enough that we can fit into pretty much a normal parking space.
Yes.
We fill it to the max plus a tiny bit, but we do fit. And so we can get in. Our height is limited, so there's places where we can't get in because of height. But width-wise, length-wise, we can fit in a lot of small places with that van.
Surprisingly. With
all 5 of us, which we would not be able to do with a motorhome or a bus or a lorry or anything like that.
Yeah.
So has been helpful. So that's why Caravan plus van. So now the Caravan, you talked a little bit about why we went with a hobby. They're basically a German-made brand.
German or Netherlands?
Yeah, it might be Netherlands, actually.
I guess Netherlands.
We bought it in Germany, and the manual is in German. But you're right, it might be Netherlands.
Sure it's Netherlands. Anyways.
Very high build quality.
Yes.
And so you discovered that through online research when we were in Portugal shopping. And then we the selection that was available in Portugal was pretty limited, because
and it was very expensive.
Yeah, there were only a couple dealerships, and there weren't many people there that spoke English, and the models available were very few, and like the next ones they would have were months away from arriving. And
we had to get out of Schengen area, which is the European area.
Most of Europe,
like within a couple weeks.
Within probably a month of that time that we were talking to them. Yeah. So anyway, we realized there's going to be an abundance of them up in Germany, so we can more have our pick and have a lot of models to choose from and look at. And there's good likelihood of finding dealerships where there will be English speaker, sales reps and stuff. We thought so. And and we did find, when we got there, and the dealership we went to, we were able to look at several different makes of Caravans, and see that yes, indeed, Hobby is a very high build. They're clever. Basically, they have learned a lot in all the years of Caravan construction. They've really figured out some things on how to keep weight to a minimum, but keep things reasonably strong and durable, and long lasting, and clever ways of insulating the walls and sealing around the windows and providing ventilation in the storage spaces and stuff. They really have done a pretty good job, kind of doing the best you can with making a lightweight portable living situation the best it can be. And so comparing it, like we would step into a Hobby, we'd look around and feel things and touch and move stuff and just feel the quality and the weight of things and how sturdy it felt. And then we'd hop into a Fendt brand or
the other brands
I forget. We don't need to talk down other brands, but anyway, we'd hop in other brands and it would be like, ooh, this is definitely a step down quality wise.
Yes.
Cost wise, they were less, they were cheaper.
They were cheaper. Some,
but it
not
wasn't
that
like
much.
a huge amount, but it was a significant amount less quality. And so we knew, like, oh man, this thing is going to break a lot sooner than it will in that hobby over there.
Yeah.
Just felt sturdier and
Yeah.
just more cleverly constructed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
that worked out. Yep.
with that.
And they have really nice, because in Germany there are a lot of people who do go camping, caravanning, motorhome,
It's a big
RVing.
thing. Yeah.
It's a really big deal.
Yeah.
So we found a nice place for that. So we went ahead and got our caravan. We were kind of in between, because you have to have a caravan, but you have to have a vehicle to pull it too.
Pull it,
so that
drive
time
it
was
off the lot
really
with.
kind of going back and forth. So we thought, okay, in America they have dealerships, and you can go to the dealership and buy a brand new vehicle. But they also
used
have
vehicle, whatever.
used
You can buy a
vehicles.
vehicle.
They do have
Yeah.
used vehicles in
Oh, I see
America.
where you're going.
And so we kind of looked at different ones, but were interested in the Sprinter vans. And so we went to 2 or 3 places.
Mercedes dealerships.
Yeah. And we couldn't get anything. They didn't really want to show us it. And they're like, oh, if you don't want a new one, there's like a lot over there. We had to drive to some of them to get a used one. And the used ones were only 5 years old. And if you look at it, get a 5-year-old vehicle, that is cheaper-ish,
But not by a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally we ended up finding a used car dealership, which are very rare in Germany. There are some that are not, just like in America, just like anywhere, that are not good.
Yeah.
We got a lead for a used car dealership that was supposed to be pretty reputable. And we got there and we pulled up and it felt like it was actually a dealership. Like it was actually very nice. They did a good job with it, and they are known for that, I guess. And so we were explaining what we wanted. And so they showed us several different vans, but apparently the van that we're looking for, if you try and get vans for families, the van we have, a lot of people think even now that it is a work van, which means that they have the seat in the front, or the seats in the front, and then it's just a work van in the back. So we actually have 2 rows of seats in the back that we can have, which is apparently rare, especially in a used van there.
It's very common to have the row of front seats, and then one, if you have more seats, then it's 1 row of 2 or 3 people worth of bench, and then a wall behind that, or just cargo space behind that. But ours has a additional third row that's removable. But it's a full, another 3 people can fit back there. And
so it's not, so it's a rare
is
thing.
a big deal to find.
So that was a big deal for us. Obviously, because we have kids. And so that was a nice thing we found.
We wanted the capacity to be able to carry the 5 of us plus some more people if we were picking people up, which we did. We picked my folks up from the airport in Croatia. And so it was handy having that extra bench capacity. We usually don't use it. Usually it's cargo space back there, but just the fact that we have it, and the seat belts, and it's the mounts, and it's all legal, it's all from the factory that way, was really huge. And that was literally the one van that we found in the time available that we had to shop, and with our available budget and the places we were able to find, we found that one single van that was because I wanted I believe I was looking for a model 316 or bigger Sprinter,
so it could pull this,
so that it would be heavy enough and powerful enough to carry a caravan, more or less full time. And so I wanted 316, I think it goes 317 or 319. We ended up with a 319. So it's roughly the American equivalent of a 3/4 ton, truck, body, chassis, and powertrain and everything. So that's what we ended up with. And I was really thankful.
It's really nice
for that. It's been plenty powerful.
Yeah.
And they're built to last a long time. That's also why we chose to go with a new Caravan, because we've dealt with mold in the past. We've dealt with issues in the past, because let's face it, Caravans are not built to last. They are not built to be lived in full time.
Yeah.
At all. It's not their intended use for you to live in it full time with 5 people.
No.
And travel all over with it. So we wanted as much longevity and as much maintenance free and the best chance of being mold free for as long as possible. And so that's why we went new on the Caravan.
Yep.
But budget wise and just basically it made total sense to get a used van to pull it with. Because if we got a low enough mileage one, then the longevity is still there. Should be relatively maintenance free or low maintenance. But the cost is way less. So thankfully, God provided these vehicles literally in the nick of time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We need to do it. So for those of you who are looking to buy a vehicle in Germany, especially if you come from America or other countries around the world outside of Europe and you're not used to the system in Europe, we discovered that when you order a vehicle or you find a vehicle, it is not normal for you to pick it up that day or the next few days or the next week or two.
Maybe if you're buying it private party. Maybe. But
it's usually like 3 or 4. It's like 3 or 4 weeks is quick.
Yeah. Their process is slow.
Yes, and doing the paperwork and everything. But we had to get out of Schengen.
Yeah.
So we kept pushing and pushing. And so they just kept saying, well, we need to get this done and we need to get that done and this needs to be done. And Tom knows how to work on vehicles and we've always had used vehicles. And so we just said, we don't care. We need to get out of Schengen. If we get locked out of Schengen and they won't allow us back in because we overstayed, we're in trouble.
That'd be bad. Yeah.
So we just got our vehicle with some quirks and things not completely finished. And that's been all right. Yeah. It's been fine. We've been able to deal with it or fix it.
And the Caravan was just stock. Like as it was on the lot, we didn't have them, which is also not normal.
Normally, they didn't know what to do with us. Nobody knew what to do with us.
You will order your Caravan or claim, you'll say, I'm going to buy this Caravan. Let's go under contract to buy this Caravan. Now, I want you to install air conditioning. I want you to install a TV antenna, a max air fan, a
battery,
upgrade this, a battery, propane tanks, which there was a translation issue. Yes. We thought it was going to come with those. It came with the preparation for those. So the plumbing was there for the propane and the wiring was there for the battery.
Yes.
But those important actual items were not included. So we had to round them up. Literally last minute as we were working our way out of Germany. We had to call people on a weekend and try to find places that had the right size and stuff. And that was not fun.
No.
But it worked out.
We were able to get it. So you can do it.
Normally,
it's hard.
Normally, like the customer is adding on things, an awning and a retractable, there's movers. Yeah. There's little remote control. They basically like servo motors, really powerful motors that attach at the wheels. You'd have 4 of them if you had a tandem axle trailer, or just 2 of them if you had a single axle trailer. And they're little motors that like move into position and engage with the tire, the outside perimeter of the tires. And then they're little motors. You literally have a little remote control and you can drive your Caravan, your full-size Caravan, like it's a radio controlled car.
Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah.
But
we would have gotten it if we could have.
In tight spots, that would be so incredible.
Especially the 9 meter
There were
one.
many times, especially the huge 9 meter, when they heard that we first learned, because I've never seen those in America. No. They might have them now, but I've never heard of them. And so they were like, do you want movers? And I was like, what's a mover? And so they pointed it out, oh, that'd be really cool. Ooh, those are expensive. It was about €1,000 per wheel. So it'd be $4,000 onto that big trailer. And they heard, basically, we didn't have the budget for it or the time to have them installed.
Well, we would have had the budget then, but we didn't have 2 months.
And I could have installed
been 2
later.
months.
We chose against it,
yeah,
basically.
Anyhow, we decided not to.
And they were like, really? You're going to drive around Europe with a 9-meter Caravan without movers on it?
He did great.
We made it. It was okay. But another story for another day.
Yeah.
That's one reason that we ended up with the accident that we had. Was difficulty for maneuvering space in tight spaces. But anyway, so anyway, they're used to that. They're used to that long process of like having time to install all those goodies and order them, get them in, put it in the shop, install those things, and then you pick up your vehicle when it's all done in like 6 weeks. 4 weeks.
Oh, no. 1.5. Yeah. It was 6 weeks was like the fastest.
Fast track, 6 weeks.
That they could do.
But we were like, how would you do 2?
One.
We
pushed for 1. We were pushing for 1. And they just didn't know what to do. So then we had to wait for like, it was 2 weeks, I believe.
But they allowed us to buy the vehicle stock as
we are so thankful they did.
And anyway, so we literally got out of the Schengen area on the last
it was
legal
90th
day that we could have. Praise God, we made it out. And so anyway, why Germany? Why do we buy vehicles in Germany? Turns out, we discovered through online research, there's a company started and run by a fellow American from Oregon. Marcus made this company called CarTurf. mycarturf.com, I believe is the website. Basically, he found in the German law, the way they register vehicles, he discovered that there was a way that he could legally structure it so that non-Europeans who did not have residency in Europe at all could purchase European vehicles and register them using his business address as the registered owner address, but still have ownership of the vehicle. And so awesome service, kind of like a subscription service where you're using his address and there's different levels of service where he can, do more or less of the amount of paperwork and go into the DMV, the German equivalent of a DMV, to get your license plates and stuff like that. And he can hook you up with insurance partners to get your vehicle insurance, stuff like that. So highly recommend CarTurf. That is what made it possible. That's also what motivated to buy us to buy our vehicles in Germany, so that they would already be correctly registered, licensed in the same country we were registering it in, so we didn't have to jump through hoops of special inspections to make sure it conformed to that country and yada yada. So they were already in country. We were able just to register them. So that was why Germany. So let's see, the van we got is a short wheelbase van. It would be nice at times to have a medium or long wheelbase, but for what we've done, I think it's been perfect because we've been able to maneuver so well in small villages, and there are a lot of them. The van we got is also, I think it's about the standard height or 1 notch above the standard height. Again, we could have gone taller. That could be changed down the road. It could be made taller, but it's like just the right combination, I think, for what we're doing, that it's working really well for us. So that's been really good. Let's see. So Caravan, van, what other questions do we have or related to this? Yes. So at at most campsites we have been to, for any significant length of time, people will walk up to us, they will see our license plates that are German, so then they will start speaking German to us, assuming that we are Germans, and then we will look at them and start speaking in English, saying, "I'm sorry, do you speak English?"
And they don't know what to do.
Or saying, "I'm really sorry, we don't speak German." And then we explain, no, they're registered in Germany. yada,
Yeah.
that whole story. So that answers that. Then the next question usually is,
Not that. I mean, we get
well,
it
no,
some.
we get it a lot though.
We do.
Are you gypsies?
And the first time it happened, we were trying to book it out of Germany, and we were in a place in Austria.
Right?
Yeah. We were in Graz, in Austria, trying to book it out, and a man pulls. He's kind of just driving by, and he yells out in German, I think it was, something about like, "Oh, are you gypsies or something?" And Tom was there, and I remember from history and like learning about cultural stuff, gypsies are not necessarily the most well thought of in Europe. But when we as Americans think of gypsies, we think of Quasimodo and Esmeralda in Hunchback of Notre Dame. And we think of like Chocolat, Johnny Depp in Chocolat as gypsies. Those are both 50, 100 years ago, about or so, or more. I know. But they're older, they're in the past. So I thought it was more of a lingering feeling
Past
for
memory.
people who past memory and past. That's not the case. Gypsies are alive and well in Europe. We don't have them in America. So we honestly had no idea.
Yeah.
But they are.
So it took us a while to figure out what exactly they were asking.
Yes.
Because we didn't know if it was a language barrier thing where they were like just coming up with the closest word they knew to like ask, like, are you living full time on the road? Are you nomadic or something?
No.
So that's why, like, it took us a while to figure out what exactly.
No.
Are you indeed asking about gypsies? Yes, indeed they were.
I think it's because of my head covering. That's what I still think it is part of it.
And yeah, and sometimes the clothes we wear kind of can lend themselves to that look too. But it wasn't until we were in the UK. So this is after what? 9
since
months
the end of June
or something.
It was the end of June last year, all the way until
the fall, October.
It was December when we finally went back.
No, yeah, you're right. So
back to the UK.
A good half year, basically.
Yeah.
Half a year worth of this, and very, very frequently asking, "Are you gypsies?"
Yeah. I'm like, no.
And we're like, no. What gives you that idea is what was going through our minds also, and then we finally in England, the owner of a campsite finally told us it's because you're driving a hobby caravan is a big piece of it, because there, at least in that particular neck of the woods, gypsies do actually come on in. Most of them have dual axle. Comes to why it's actually good that we have a single axle trailer. A lot of the gypsies come in hobby caravans that have twin axles.
They have kids.
They have a lot of kids
during the school year.
And they come in and they often pay cash, but they'll pay for a couple nights worth of staying on site. But then she said then they will kind of start just claiming territory and kind of squatting and just like basically acting like they own the place, and they'll just take over. If you allow them, they will just take over and say, we now own this plot, this is our property.
Their kids run around crazy
here, and we're not going to pay you for it either. And their kids start being rude, and
it's not a good reputation.
A lot of campsite owners, they've had nightmares dealing with these gypsies that have come through. And so her recommendation, so just so you know, if you're wanting to do this kind of thing, I would recommend, especially if you're going to be in the UK at all, I'd recommend trying to do a single axle caravan. Hobby is still a good brand, but especially if you have a single axle. But also, if you can come into a campsite and spend a few nights there, like before booking a long term, because also the gypsies would come and try to book a long term, like a month at a time or something like that. And that's kind of a telltale. The campsite owners have learned that that's sort of a telltale sign of potential gypsies. And so she recommended show up at a place, pay, book 1 or 2 nights, get to know the owners, build a little bit of a relationship with them so they know who you are, and that you're not gypsies, and you know, it's obvious that you're paying and you're expecting to pay, and your children are polite and taking good care of the surroundings and being nice to their neighbors, and just, you know, be nice campers at their campsite. Prove yourself to be trustworthy and just a normal camper, and then extend your stay if things are working well. If you're building a relationship and it's all working well and you like the place and it's meeting your needs and stuff, then extend it to a few weeks or whatever you need. So that was really helpful to learn, and kind of answered some of those questions of like, why are we being stereotyped as gypsies?
Yeah. Also, we decided, well, I don't think we're going to get it, but we wanted to get 2 bumper stickers to put on the back of the Caravan to say, no, we're not Germans, and no, we're not gypsies. But we decided not to. At least not yet. We haven't decided yet.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm looking at other questions we've gotten. Specific country.
I can probably wrap it up.
Do you want to answer the homeschool question real quick? Simply?
I think we should do the homeschool one, another one.
Or that could be another one.
I think it'll be another time. Maybe
another
next
one.
week. Birka, that's for you.
Vehicle in Germany. Yeah. I think that's probably it for now. We'll leave it a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
And that way you guys can have more of a chance at watching it. So, thank you for joining us. Hopefully the next Sunday will be an actual live video. We love getting your questions, so please send them in. Either write them in the comments or email them to us at nomadichomesteaders@protonmail.com. And we will hopefully be able to address them on a future live video. So have a blessed rest of your weekend if you're still in it, and a blessed week ahead. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care.